Hello everyone, welcome back to another Minecraft update video for Snapshot 25W35A. It's an interesting one, but first let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm back in my normal recording setup with my regular microphone. I'm sure you all prefer this one much more than last week's update video. I asked you to roast me, and there were some really good ones in the comments, but this one right here was my favorite. That mic made me think there'd be a Bandicam watermark. It really was pretty terrible, right? But swiftly moving on, let's talk about this week's snapshot. We are getting a Minecraft server management protocol, some other interesting changes to servers, and Copper Gollem item sorting has some fixes. But first, we're going to sprint through some small details that have been changed. For example, the chain has now been renamed to Iron Chain. This is obviously because they added the copper chain to the game. And with this change, if you want to craft a hanging sign, you have to use the iron chain. You can't put a copper chain into this recipe anymore. Inside the creative menu's redstone tab, you will now just find the single waxed lightning rod and not all of the different states. And there's now the waxed copper chest you can find in here too. There are subtle changes to the mouse cursor. When you hover over buttons, it now changes to the point and click icon. Equally, if you interact with a slide bar, when clicking, it changes to these sideways arrows. It's the same thing for a scroll bar too. Once you click, you get an upwards and downwards arrow. And if you're entering text into a text field, the cursor will change to this classic cursor. And the screen we were just looking at was the add server screen, which will no longer put in a Minecraft server name here by default. So there's lots of big server changes, and this first one is actually quite interesting for single player. Because when you play single player, you are technically just running a server and you're the only person playing on it. So some of what used to be a part of the configuration of a server through the server.properties file have been migrated into game rules. This means that you can change them on the fly, live in the world, but also you can do this in single player now, so let's check them out. This one is allow entering nether using portals, and by default would be set to true. And when it was a server property, it was known as allow nether. This is the only one that's actually had a name change. So if you want to disable the nether in your single player world, you can do that. You can also stop monsters from spawning by setting this to false. And this isn't the same as setting your game to peaceful, because that would change other things too. So if you want to play in hard difficulty but not have mobs spawn, you now have the option to do that. You can also disable command blocks using this game rule. And then there's PvP, which I guess doesn't apply to single player. But hey, you can turn it off or on, it just makes no difference. So here's where things get technical. The Minecraft Server Management Protocol, which is an API. Now, an API is an application programming interface. Oh god, it's getting so technical here, isn't it? There's actually a pretty simple thing to understand. It's like a language that allows you to interact with something. So let's say we build a program that runs some code over here, and the API allows us to talk to the server. So this is the server over here. Then when we run our program, we can make changes to the server through the API. In the world of modded Minecraft servers, I'm pretty sure this stuff already exists, but let's have a look at what's being added for vanilla here. So you can do things like change the server settings and game rules. I believe players is controlling the whitelist, or maybe that's what allow list is. You can also manipulate who has OP. On the article that's always linked in the description, you can find some examples of how this works, as well as instructions on how to set up your server so that you can connect to it through the API. And if you're wondering what this could be used for, well, I have a couple of examples. If you run a supporter server like I do for my Twitch subs and Patreons, then they would be able to connect immediately as soon as they qualify if you take advantage of this API. Ironically, we had already built our own system to do this, so it wouldn't really help us. It's called the Gateway, and you can use this system to get whitelisted on our server. If you're interested, head over to my website, xisumavoid.com, click on Get Whitelisted on the left side of the screen. Yep, that was totally a plug for my server, but there's a good reason for this. On Wednesday, September the 3rd at 7 PM BST, we are hosting a supporter UHC. If you're a part of the community, I'd love for you to take part. If you're in our Discord server, you'll be able to find out where and when to go. Now, I did say I had a couple of ideas. The other one is that you could be on a server streaming to an audience, and that audience through the chat could interact with this API and change things on the fly in your world. If we could execute commands through this API, you could get up to all sorts of shenanigans, but I'm not sure that's possible at the moment. I think its initial rollout things are quite limited. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with this new API because Mojang could easily expand it in the future. Next up, Copper Golem. So last week we saw a change to the size of the Copper Golem's hitbox, which didn't seem like a great idea because it would stop it from walking under one high blocks. But as you see here, it's been changed. Its hitbox was 0.01. It's now been changed to 0.98. That is, of course, its height, and there are no other changes to its hitbox. So since copper chests have been added, there was an issue with the underside of the double copper chest, which has been fixed in the snapshot. As you can see here on the old texture, the bottom of it was a square. On the new texture, it's now changed so that they connect together. So previously we'd seen this new Easter egg where an iron golem could give a poppy to a copper golem to wear on its head. And I believe it isn't rendering correctly if we compare it. There's like this gap that appears in the middle of the texture at the bottom. All right, if this guy stands still for a moment, we can see it. Anyway, a change has been made so that this is now rendered not from the head slot, but from the saddle slot. We're going to summon in a copper golem that's doing that. It's got a torch flower in its saddle slot, and here's one that would have it in its head slot, which is how it previously rendered. Now it'll just put a flat item icon at the back like so. So what about when it comes to having a head object on its head? Well, a saddle will render like this, and if it's in the head slot, it's going to render as an actual head object covering around its head. So now you can get the best of both worlds. Now I'm starting to think we're not going to get any major changes to how copper golems sort items, but we are at least going to see fixes and improvements on the current system. And when doing some testing, one thing that I noticed is that a copper golem was unable to reach above itself to put items away. So in theory, now it should reach up and put it into that chest, which it is doing, and putting the items in. Excellent. And this isn't just diagonally above itself at an angle, it can literally reach above itself to a chest like it's doing right now. That is a really welcome change. Here are some other ones related to the copper golem. It is no longer going to be able to sort items into a chest like this. It could actually walk up to the corner of this wall and sort items into a chest through the wall. The particle effect from removing a layer of oxidization from a copper golem was missing, so now when we right click on it, we get that particle effect. I'd seen this next issue from my own testing, that with copper golems constantly opening and closing chests, sometimes they would get stuck in that open state and they wouldn't close. And there's a few more smaller ones worth mentioning from the bug fix list. There was some texture Z fighting on the copper golem's head. Their searching animation would continue playing whilst they were dying. And now they're going to avoid dangerous blocks when they're pathfinding to chests. And when in the sitting pose, the copper statue's rod became shorter. It's crazy just how many little details there are in this game that can be off. So the sitting pose is now got a normal rod on its head. Okay, next up, there are some changes to text rendering. On the website, there is some documentation around this feature, but the one we can take advantage of today is the player object type. And a big shout out to Hewan for helping me with this command so I can give you a demonstration of it in action. We're going to use the title command to display some text on the screen. If you've forgotten all about this command, well, it puts big text on your screen for you. We're going to use it to display the faces of some of the Minecraft developers. And by faces, I mean their player skins, right? Look, there they go. I think this might have been made possible by the recent fetch profile command, because now we can look up a player's username and use that to display it in the command. So that's how we got their faces up on the screen. This will work in other places where text appears throughout the game too. Let's try the action bar. Hey, there you go. The faces are very small there. Okay, and next up, a bit of a major derp on my behalf. 2 snapshots back, something was added, and just somehow I managed to skip over my recording of it, so that's what we're going to check out next. All right, our last small change is to the social interactions screen. I have a question for you. How many of you actually even remember this thing exists? I'd certainly forgotten about it, but anyway, this is the screen. And the change is a simple one. When a player now logs out, they will appear offline in here. Okay, so my alt account has logged out, and now you can see them here, but their status is offline. If I were to then log out and log back in, they would no longer appear there. So essentially, I think this thing is for reporting players after they've logged out, which is kind of a big oversight. So no surprise to see that change added. And with that, my friends, we've covered everything from this snapshot and that thing that I missed from 2 snapshots ago. So it's the end of the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to catch more. And if you want to follow me on Twitch, I'm going to be streaming later today with a totally new game, playing with some friends. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. You can find my link to my Twitch channel in the description box below. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next week with another one. Bye-bye.